afternoon. Thank you for joining us for today's session. My name is Amy Elmore, and today we'll be talking about the vision for our future as we grow in Hillsborough County. Just a few things to keep in mind before we get started. This meeting is being recorded and will be available after the meeting. Please keep your mic muted and your camera off throughout the meeting unless you'd like to speak. If you have any questions for the presenters during the presentation, please type them into the chat box in your Zoom panel. Please do not chat privately with other attendees. We will have time for questions at the end. You'll be able to use the raise hand button to ask a question. Any questions that we're not able to get to today, we'll make sure to follow up with you afterwards. If you have technical issues during the presentation, please email papandrewa@plancom.org and someone will contact you. So today we're focusing on the question, how will unincorporated Hillsborough County grow? That's what we're trying to discover as we update our comprehensive plan's future land use. A little bit about me. My name is Amy Elmore. I am a consultant project manager with EXP, but I have been in the Tampa area. I have lived here and worked here for over 10 years, and I am honored to be a part of this update as I am completely and personally invested in this community and excited to see the wonderful things coming to Hillsborough County. By 2045, unincorporated Hillsborough County will see 350,000 more people and 107,000 more jobs. We'll also have an increasing demand for transportation, public county services, schools, and recreation. And this is really what this update is all about. We're trying to identify how we should grow and where we should grow, and that's where we need your help. A little bit about our comprehensive plan. Essentially, it's a legally required document that envisions future growth, provides consistency, prioritizes funding, and protects resources. And it's updated every 7 to 10 years. Currently, Plan Hillsborough has updated most of the sections within the comprehensive plan, which we're calling Creating Great Places, including the Natural Open Space section, the One Water section, the Governance section, except for the Public Schools portion, and both the Mobility and Housing portions of the Community and Built Environment section. So now we're finishing that last piece of the puzzle, our Future Land Use section. This is just the beginning of the planning process. We'll be hosting several more public workshops before we provide our recommendations. From there, these recommendations will go to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission will make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. Then the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners will make the final adoption. Throughout this process, we'll be doing a lot of outreach and marketing so you can stay informed and provide feedback throughout the entire planning process. So what is future use? If you think about the comprehensive plan as the 30,000-foot view, the future land use section is the 10,000-foot view, and the zoning is the ground view. Future land use guides purpose and character of growth, separates land into general categories like residential or commercial, and sets maximum density and range of uses. Our zoning regulates building size, setbacks, and specific uses. It can approve or deny developments, and it can define specific zoning districts. Future land use, organized by Plan Hillsborough, and our zoning, organized by the Land Development Code through the Hillsborough County Planning Department, work together to maintain health, safety, and welfare. But right now, we're focusing on the future land use section specifically. Throughout this process, you may hear us talk about the urban service area. This is a part of the future land use section, and pinpoints where current growth is focused. Here on the screen, you can see the red area is the urban service area, and the square is Hillsborough County. One thing that is really unique about Hillsborough County is that we have choices on where we want to live, whether in an urban area, in the suburbs, or in a more rural area. The urban service area is what identifies urban, suburban, and rural areas throughout the county, allowing us to have these choices. But as we continue to grow, we know that we are running out of land that is vacant, developable, or redevelopable within the urban service area. Here's a closer look at the urban service area that is currently in place. This does not include our cities, like the city of Tampa. In fact, Tampa is currently doing their own comprehensive plan update. You can find more information on that on the Plan Hillsborough website. The Comprehensive Plan and Future Land Use section coordinates with many other plans to help create a better future, including the Long Range Transportation Plan, organized by the Hillsborough Transportation Planning Organization, the Transit Development Plan, organized by HART, and the Land Development Code, which oversees all zoning and is organized by the Hillsborough County Planning Department. We recently did a survey about the land use update. We had over 1,800 participants and over 32,000 data points. Most of our participants were Caucasian and work full-time, though we did have some BIPOC participation. Overall, we heard that many of our community members prioritize preserving natural areas, maximizing infrastructure and development, maintaining agricultural and rural lands, and a variety of mobility choices. They also felt that maximizing existing infrastructure was the most important strategy, while a variety of housing types was ranked as the least important, though 25% of our participants still ranked a variety of housing types as the most important. So it's still something we plan on prioritizing. In addition to maximizing existing infrastructure, participants also wanted to see safe walking and biking and being close to daily needs. As we move forward, we're anticipating several changes in the Comprehensive Plan's future land. For the changes we're anticipating, the majority of these changes will be minor streamlined process changes or typographical fixes. However, we do anticipate a few other changes. Today we'll be discussing three components: our centers and connections element, transit-oriented development, and commercial locational criteria. At our next meeting, we'll dive deeper into the urban service area. For that particular discussion, we'll be looking at a high-level view of the planning process and identifying creative ways to accommodate for the more people that we'll see over 20 years. We know these decisions take time and coordination, as well as a lot of public engagement. So again, this is just the beginning of this process. So first today, let's dive into our centers and connections element of the future land use update. This is personally something I'm very excited about, as its intent is to expand choices for living and getting around. It will connect activity centers and corridors, expand housing opportunities, encourage more pedestrian-friendly development, allow for greater density in areas that want it, and provide a sense of place. By encouraging growth in areas where communities desire it, we can expand housing opportunities, improve walkability, and again, encourage that sense of place. We already have several communities and corridors that want to see more density. For these areas, we can provide incentives and bonuses for development in places that make sense and provide a benefit to the community. These incentives would always be optional, but not required for property owners that don't want it. Overall, the centers and connections element will maximize existing infrastructure and preserve our rural, suburban, and urban lifestyles throughout Hillsborough County. Plan Hillsborough has developed a map showing these centers and connections, and there were many different things that they considered when developing this map, including places that support walkability, centers that are already designated for growth, major intersection and activity centers, and places where we can improve walking and biking conditions. This is the proposed centers and connections map. We received some great feedback on this map in our survey, and we'll use that feedback along with any future feedback to make any necessary changes. We welcome feedback on this map throughout this process, and you can see a full-size map on our website at any time. So what could these changes look like potentially? This slide shows the town and country area. You can see here we have Waters Avenue and a home with 6 homes per acre. With a slight uptick in density, you could have slightly smaller lots with mobility and sidewalk improvements. Here is the USF area on Fletcher Avenue. We currently allow 20 units per acre, but with 30 units per acre, you could see a lot of improvements and more connection, which could be especially beneficial to our students and teachers throughout this area. Over in Palm River on 78th Street, we see residential with 9 units per acre. And with just a few more units, we can have townhomes or duplexes to provide that variety of housing types. Many times these words density and intensity get a bad name, but by directing growth in the right places, we can preserve other beautiful amenities. We don't want density everywhere, only in places that make sense and that we've identified on our centers and connections map that we just showed. We're going to take a minute to get your feedback now. We'd like to understand more what your priorities are. So take a minute and scan the QR code on your screen or visit bit.ly/centers-connections, which we're also adding that link in the chat. You will be given 5 total votes to use on 11 photos that we're about to show you and that are also in your survey. Vote for the items that you feel are most important. You can use all your votes on one photo, or you can spread them out however you'd like. These potential design requirements are specific to centers and connections found on the CNC map and do not apply to the entire county. So let's take one more look at our centers and connections map. As you can see, the main purple circles are the centers, and the blue lines are the primary connections we've identified. These are the areas we're mainly focusing on. So when you open up that survey, you'll see these 11 photos. Take a minute and let us know what's most important to you. These 11 options are connected sidewalks, crosswalks, protected bike lanes, reduced speed limits, duplexes, townhomes, mid-rise development, mixed-use development, transit service, commercial development, and public green space. Please note while you're filling this out, this is a special survey only for the people that have attended this meeting today. We will leave it open for the rest of the evening in case you need extra time, but it will not be available after tonight. The next section we're going to focus on is the transit-oriented development element. Transit-oriented development focuses growth specifically around transit routes. This often overlaps with our major corridors and centers and encourages mobility options, affordable homes, and mixed use. Overall, this element connects people to opportunities. and you can also see more about this again on our website. Transit-oriented development will apply within a half-mile radius of proposed stations. It may allow increased density and intensity in exchange for the designs that promote access to multiple mobility options, include affordable housing, and include mixed uses so that we can keep necessary services in close proximity to residences. Currently, the Tampa streetcar is the only transit facility the policy may be applied, but others could be planned. The last section we'll discuss today is our commercial locational criteria. If you think that sounds familiar, it's probably because it does. Plan Hillsborough has been working on this element since 2021 and has done a lot of outreach and workshops specifically focused on this. After some direction by the Board of County Commissioners and based on the feedback we received during this outreach, we've made a few revisions and have some recommendations ready for further review. Commercial locational criteria allows certain commercial development within some residential or industrial areas where it meets people's needs and integrates seamlessly. For example, if a small convenience store or coffee shop wants to locate within a residential area, they would not be expected to go through the comprehensive plan amendment process, which can take a lot of time. Major revisions to this element include adding a neighborhood mixed use 6 as a future land use category. This would permit commercial activities without permitting high density development. We would also propose adding a commercial neighborhood limited future land use category. This considers how to handle certain auto-oriented uses, like car washes, to maintain residential character of neighborhoods. Next, customizing and reducing development size at each intersection quadrant. This is only for areas outside the urban service area. So we would review maximum development size per intersection quadrant in rural and industrial areas, ensuring an appropriate intensity for each intersection. Next, we've created an updated context classification map to help determine appropriate locations for commercial development. This will replace the current outdated cost affordable map. Also, agricultural uses will not be restricted or removed under this policy. And node separation, which makes sure there is distance between commercial developments, prevents strip commercial. We're about to go into our breakout groups where everyone will get about 15 minutes with each presenter on all 3 topics we've discussed today. So let's introduce our breakout room presenters. We have Katrina Corcoran, who will be talking about our centers and connections section. We have Andrea, who will be talking about our commercial locational criteria. You'll automatically get into a room and you'll stay in this room the entire time. Every 15 minutes, the presenters will switch rooms, give a short presentation, and answer questions. Once in the room, feel free to turn your microphones and cameras on if you'd like. You can also still use the chat and the raise hand button after all 3 presenters have spoken in each room. We will all come back together to report back, and there will be an open Q&A at the end of our meeting, so you can ask any other questions you may have. Please note that within this meeting, please allow everyone a chance to speak, listen respectfully without interrupting, and do not use inflammatory language. With that, we'll send you into your breakout rooms.
Get that? Thank you so much. So I know that a few of you may have been cut off with your questions during our breakout room sessions. As Andrea and Melissa just mentioned, we will have a Q&A here in just a moment where we can ask all of those questions and more. And I'll also ask our presenters, if you don't mind, please put your email into the chat so that folks can reach out to you specifically if they'd like to learn more or have a specific question for you later on. I'm also going to add to the chat in case you had any trouble with the bit.ly link. Here is a long link for you for that vision preference survey. Please feel free to fill that out, but it is the same survey, so if you filled it out already, please don't fill that out again. Just if you had any issues with the bit.ly link and were not able to fill out the visual preference survey at the beginning. Thank you, Andrea. I see that your information is in the chat. Maybe if you don't mind just going ahead and adding Katrina and Jay's information as well. Oh, there's Jay. Fantastic. It's just coming in now. Perfect. So for our report back, I'd love to just hear from our presenters, just from our leaders, a little bit about what the discussion was and if there were any major takeaways that you wanted to mention. Just a few minutes, a quick overview of that. Andrea, would you like to get us started?
Sure. Okay. I think I'm on now. Yeah, so we had some great discussion. We had questions about the CLC study and, what is the intent of the study? It's why are we here basically? It's the CLC was updated last in 2008. We have an outdated map. We had some compatibility concerns with some of our auto-oriented uses in our residential areas with our current rezoning. So we were looking at our criteria and how we can improve it, how we can update it. We got feedback on looking at, maybe adding in some landscaping requirements. So we will take that into consideration. We also received feedback asking about how this works with specific development and zoning questions. Melissa stated very eloquently that we're not the zoning department. So we are the planning commission. So we look at the future land use at the 30,000 level. And we look at kind of how we look at the future land use element, and we look at that 30,000 foot level as opposed to zoning, which is the on the ground level. So, we can look at compatibility in terms of, commercial next to residential. If you want more specific zoning questions, we do have a development services department. Amy's got the numbers at the end of this presentation for everybody. So those are kind of the main things that we heard in our session. Melissa, is there anything I missed?
No, I think you covered it. Thank you.
Excellent. Jay, could you give us just a 2 to 3 minute overview about some major takeaways from your group?
Yeah, sure. So one of the first things that we talked about, again, that this is about land use in the county, not the actual facility, not the transit itself. Although there were some interesting conversations about the ferry service, which was interesting. A lot of people ask, well, where else in the county can we see TOD? Because we talked about Fowler Avenue, and of course, right now, there is no other area because you have to meet the definition for that type of service for the transit-oriented development. And something else that a lot of people wanted to talk about is, what about TOD alternatives? So there are areas that have service, but they don't actually meet a TOD standard. So what about those areas? Should they be considered for some sort of different form or density or intensity? That's about it.
Excellent. Thanks, Jay. That sounds like some really great discussion. Katrina or Elizabeth?
Hello, everybody. I'm happy to start us off with some of our questions and comments that we received, and then have Elizabeth jump in if I missed anything. We had a lot of great discussion, and do apologize. Some folks got cut off in our responses or our answers, so we're happy to answer your questions in this portion. So we had a lot of discussion around the centers, obviously the blue centers and the green centers, what those mean. Have we looked at areas outside of those centers? We've mentioned that, we would, as a part of the policy language, we would be evaluating this approach. And of course, we have a lot of survey points and survey data to make sure that we're in the right areas. So we're analyzing that as well. And this map is very much a draft map. what else did we talk about? We talked about, there was a gentleman who talked about the development in Brandon and his concern over that area, having those circles in that area. So that's another thing that we'll be looking at as well. We looked into South County, discussing the lack of circles that we have, or centers that we have in those areas. Given the older community plans, a lot of the centers are in the coastal high hazard area, in that area. So again, looking at those areas as well as we move forward with this. That's everything that I'm thinking of off the top of my head, but I'd love to invite Elizabeth to add more, because I'm sure I might have missed some of that.
No, that was great. Thank you, Katrina, for that. The only other thing I'd like to add is we heard from all three breakout groups about different public investments that would be needed. So hearing parks and open spaces are important, sidewalks, those sorts of public goods that should go along with the incentives.
Excellent. Thank you both so much. That sounds like some wonderful breakout rooms, excellent discussion. And thank you everyone for your amazing feedback. We'll be utilizing that feedback and all of the other feedback that we've been receiving within our future land use update. So stay tuned for how we're incorporating those. Really quickly, I just want to let you know how else you can get involved. We will have 2 more public workshops, one in person and one virtual. Our in person is Thursday, June 22nd at the All People's Life Center, and the virtual one is on June 26th. We also are doing a community plan for Valrico. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can scan the QR code or visit planhillsborough.org/Plan Valrico. We'd love to hear your thoughts and get your feedback on that. And with that, I'd love to open it up for discussion. I do see Nancy has her hand raised.
Amy, real quick.
Yes.
When we started, Hillary had a question. So
Hillary was first. You're correct.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Hillary, go ahead.
Hi there, everyone. This is Hillary Kasarjian. I have a very specific question to the Keystone Odessa Community Plan area. So the space that falls within that KOCP, we are a rural area protected by a community plan. And when I have looked at it online before, it seems that we have certain nodes or certain intersections in our area that appear to qualify for the CLC criteria. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay,
So,
and then, sorry.
No, you good.
And so it's like one of those tricky 4-part questions, I think. So of those areas, which is like Gunn and Lutz Lake Fern, maybe Patterson and Tarpon Springs Road, I think, and a few others. So those all qualify for places that are currently residential to become commercial locations. Is that correct?
No,
I was going to say, I don't have a map in front of me right now, Hillary, to answer which intersections would qualify. But what I do know is that the Keystone Odessa Community Plan has a rural activity center identified at Gunn and Mobley. So yes. that's where the community plan would like to see other commercial, or to see commercial. But yes, what I can tell you about the other intersections, there are potentially other intersections that could be considered for non-residential uses beyond. So we would look at that like as a layering effect with the community plan as well as the commercial locational criteria.
Right. So when we were talking and when I had to, right before I spoke, you had mentioned to somebody else saying that when you're looking at this from a consistency or compatibility standpoint, there would kind of sort of be a certain layer of protection in the community of the KOCP area. What does that mean? Is there a protection? Isn't there? Is it just that we won't have drive-throughs, but we could have other commercial? What is it that it can be?
Well, I think it really depends on the situation. I mean, each rezoning case or each proposition has a different fact set. So I think we would have to evaluate that. I think that it is possible that there are other intersections where commercial could be considered in Keystone Odessa. But again, I don't have that map in front of me right now to tell you what those are, but I'd be happy to have a conversation with you. There's my number. That's my direct line right there. And then I also have my email there too. So you can reach out to me and we can talk and we can hash this out in more detail. I'd be happy to
Okay,
do
because
that.
I don't want to hold anybody up, but right now it seems to be that the answer is CLC is sort of on hold and it won't do anything or allow for any changes whatsoever in the Keystone Odessa area. And that's not what I'm hearing.
No. We have commercial locational criteria today. So that is still in effect. But what this is doing, what we're proposing is to improve it, make it better. So we still have CLC today. It is still applicable. It still is there. And really all the policies in the comprehensive plan work in tandem with all the other elements and sections.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out exactly what that means. Like if I could pick a corner that shows up on your list, what does that mean for that corner?
Well, again, it would just depend on what's being proposed and what corner it is, what kind of roadway it is, what kind of square footage limitations it has, what kind of future land use designation it has. See, there's so many different facts with each land area and each project site that we would have to, talk specifics.
Right. The bigger question is if it's not commercial right now, if it's just residential, could somebody request to make it commercial?
Commercial uses are allowed to be considered in residential plan categories. So if you have residential 12, residential 2, commercial uses can be considered. Again, it's not a slam dunk. It's not a by right thing, but you can be considered for those uses in those categories. But again, we would need to take in consideration all the other goals, objectives, and policies of the plan. And that includes the community plans.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, everybody, for your patience with me.
No, that's excellent. Thank you, Hillary. Really great discussion. Nancy. I think you're on mute, Nancy. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
My question is a follow-up really to Hillary's. Living in the northwest corner of Hillsborough, we've had some changes made and we've had some things that have not been of a positive nature. So when we're talking about these commercial nodes, which Hillary's pointing out at North Moberly, I'm looking at the map and it looks like you have one tentatively for both ends of Wayne Road. One goes into Tarpon Springs, one goes into Gun Highway. We already have major issues given the revitalization of the Keystone Park. We have problems with homeless people, which we've never had in a rural area before. We're having problems with stealing, break-ins, and I think the police are aware of this. So I'm wondering, in these plans that we come up with, who's making these decisions? What input are we having from like the FDOT? I know that Gun Highway is a rural road, but I do think when you're looking at some of these roads, which are highly dangerous due to the curves, not just the fact that they're just single lanes, and then you build, a Tampa Trail, dead-ending onto a 45-mile-an-hour road, and then you revitalize a park and you have buses shipped in with children. I'm just trying to understand who's giving the feedback, the three-dimensional feedback.
Design.
Pardon?
Go ahead, Nancy. That's okay.
Okay, who's giving the feedback as to how the community is being impacted? Because these two nodes that I see now are potential. I'm sure the neighborhood would not have given that feedback. I'm wondering, is this developers giving feedback? Their attorneys giving feedback? Who's deciding this is a good place to infuse residential areas with more people when we already have problems that are not being addressed?
Well, again, Nancy, I feel like this is aligned with the last question a bit. I think this is something that it might be better for you and I to talk offline and kind of dig down a little bit deeper into that. But ultimately, the Board of County Commissioners is the body that approves or denies a rezoning application. If a property is already entitled, so already allowed to do a set of uses, then that's a different story because they could just come in, and go to site development and go get their building permits and things like that. But it's really the rezoning stage where you have the opportunity to make those comments at the Board of County Commissioners and the zoning hearing master meeting. But again, I would be happy to talk offline with you about more specifics.
All right, I'd like to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Charlotte. See, let me ask you to unmute.
There we
Charlotte,
go.
are you available?
Sorry.
That's okay, no worries.
It didn't want to work. Now that my comments go pretty much along with the prior comment, just said, all of the plans that are good go astray when the lobbyists and their clients, come before the Board of County Commissioners and reverse everything good that happens. And until we get to the point where we can do something about that, or have a commission that is not going to pay much attention, all of our plans are for naught. I mean, it's sad, but that's what I've seen happen since I've moved here. And you have done wonderful work, and there you go.
Thank you, Charlotte. I appreciate that. Dana.
Hello. So, a couple things. I'm wondering if, so my whole thing is affordable housing, and mixed use, proximity, accessibility. So, mixed use, or I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the term, but
Okay.
multimodal transportation. Sorry.
Absolutely. No
So yeah, so I see these three proposals, and I'm wondering how they work together. I'm wondering if there's a mapping of overlays of these proposed, geographic locations of increased density and intensity and transit-oriented development, and overlays with other factors like income and existing community elements, and really showing the distance between like people and the places that they're needing to go. And that is not, I don't need like a map right now. I'm just putting it out there that would be helpful. And then I wanted to ask, or just put out there, if you guys have looked at Forward Pinellas's target employment and industrial land study approach. I think it's really cool. I like how they're thinking about HB 1339 and how to increase affordable housing, and in proximity to commercial, and as well as their transit corridors approach and upzoning, specifically around within a quarter-mile of transit corridors, and alleyways, and kind of incorporating all that. And then I also wanted to plug SB 102 as a tool that can be used to identify surplus land and leverage tax incentives and things like that to improve where we are directing development and how we're directing development. I hope my comment makes sense. I tried to pack a lot in, so thank you.
Absolutely, Dana. Thank you so much. And what I'll say is that I know that we've considered many elements when we're looking at our centers and connections map, and that section especially. And you can probably see that a lot of our centers and connections have some existing transit routes. So we do have those overlays. We are considering all of those. And I love that you are participating in the target employment study with Forward Pinellas. Rodney and Jared, who are leading that study, are good friends of ours. So we're definitely in coordination with them. But Andrea, would you like to add?
Sure, I'm going to add, and then I see Katrina's online.
Yes, Katrina would also like to add something
as well. So Yeah, thank you for your comments, Dana. I did want to address that right now we do have affordable housing density bonus in our comp plan as well to help with that, incentivize more affordable housing in the area. We also, as part of the future land use that's adopted, and we're not changing it, is we have bonuses for mixed use. So if you have 2 or more land uses, or actually 3 or more, and then 2 are vertically integrated, you can go up to the next highest category in terms of density or FAR, square footage. So we do have a bonus to incentivize more of the mixed use. We have an affordable housing bonus, and we are going to continue to look at putting, land use and transportation together, which is kind of what Centers and Connections is doing. I'm going to turn it over to Katrina.
Thank you. And thank you for those comments, Dana. As far as you mentioned, kind of overlapping these different concepts. So Elizabeth and I have looked at the CLC intersections and compared that with what we have in terms of the Centers and Connections. We've also talked with Jay about areas that may be feasible for TODs. As far as the Centers and Connections, the most feasible, or the area that we've looked at the most, would be the university area at this time. So we're definitely having those conversations and making sure that we have an understanding of the overlap of these concepts. You also mentioned a couple different bills that were passed with the legislature. Our staff are definitely listening in on legislative webinars with that, and looking into more thoroughly the implications of some of those bills. Also talking to various legal staff, our legal staff with the Planning Commission, as well as various jurisdiction legal staff, to make sure that we're getting a good understanding of those bills and how it impacts our work. So thank you again very much for pointing that out and providing those comments. Thank you.
Yes, excellent. Thank you so much. Tatiana, I believe you were next.
I actually think it was Nathan, if he wants to go.
Oh, apologies, Nathan.
Oh, no
Thank
worries.
you, Tatiana.
Yeah, I was wondering how they order these. I want to thank Dana for talking about affordability. I might have missed it in the first presentation, but I thought it was interesting, or I don't know, conspicuous to me that I haven't heard the A word mentioned in that whole lead up to Dana's question. This is less directed at the planners here, but more to the overall conversation that I think these kind of meetings should be facilitating in our community, which is, I think that maybe most people in Hillsborough County would say affordability is the most important issue that we're facing with our land use right now. Maybe they don't know that. Maybe a lot of people aren't educated about the role that land use has on affordability. In these situations, it's just important that we're centering, I think, the messaging, in terms of what the output of the update is. I would really love to see affordability be the centerpiece of it, which, as communicated tonight, I did not come across. I know you just went through, a couple of you went through all the things that we're doing on affordability already, and I applaud those. I am curious, I guess, in terms of specific questions, what more can we be doing in this update? When were the last changes made to those density bonuses, for example, for affordability, and how effective were they, and how can we make them more effective? And then my second question is another hard question, which is, in meetings like this, the representation of our community is not really balanced, right? There are so many renters in our community who don't know these meetings occur, don't know how this is relevant to them. People who are being pushed out. I heard earlier somebody used the word transient to describe renters, and the reason why many renters appear to be transient is because they are having their rent go up 50% in the last 3 years. And so I guess, what is the commission doing to account for the fact that maybe in these public input meetings, those voices of people being pushed out are not being represented, and basically the needs for apartments, I think, are not, we're not represented in the comments tonight. So I'm here to say that they should be represented, but I'm curious about, I guess, y'all's interpretation of those things.
Thank you, Nathan. Those are both really wonderful points. So to your first point about affordable housing, what I'll say is that I think that a lot of times we focus on some of the details that can lead us to affordable housing, such as the variety of housing types and the density and intensity bonuses. And I'd be happy to have Andrea or Melissa give you some more specifics on the exact density and intensity bonuses related to affordable housing if they had any other further comments. And then oh, go ahead.
So, no, you go ahead. I thought you were finished. Go ahead.
I was just going to mention too, as far as the renters not being heard, wow, it's such an impactful piece of feedback, because I think that, we do, we do our newspaper ads, we do television ads, we were on the Tampa Bay Morning Blend, we do our social media, but really targeting renters and saying, we want to hear from you too. Even if you don't own a home, that's okay. We want to hear from you too. I think that's a fantastic point. And I think that it needs to become part of our strategy to really focus on those missing voices. So thank you very much for that feedback. Melissa?
Thanks, Amy. What I was going to say is we just happen to have one of the leads that worked on the update to the housing section, which was previously called the housing element on here. So Jay, who was leading the discussion on the transit-oriented development, he was actually one of the leads on that project. So I thought maybe he would want to say a little bit about the affordability component and what was worked into the housing section when it was updated.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Amy. Yeah, we're a jack of all trades here, so we get to dabble in a little bit of every policy initiative you can think of. We did update the housing section here just a little over a year ago. Part of that update is we actually had a consultant look at the affordable housing density bonus for Hillsborough County. We'll go into the weeds for a minute about it. Basically, what that bonus does is it says if you provide 20% of your units affordable at an 80% AMI, you're going to get a bonus. So you might go from 9 units to the acre to 12 units to the acre, 12 units to the acre, 16 units to the acre. So what we did is we increased a little bit of what that density bonus gives you. So maybe now it's 9 to 16 instead of having to go 12 to 16. And then we kept it at 20%, but we changed the AMI breakdown to be a 60% and 100% AMI breakdown. So
and Jay, I'm so sorry to stop you, but could you tell me what AMI stands for?
Area median income. I'm so sorry. So it's
thank you. I appreciate it.
It's basically looking at the whole population, and it goes, if I've got 100 people, that 50th person, what do they make? That's your 100% AMI. So basically what we did is we did tweak that a little bit to look for additional ways to incentivize affordable housing. That was passed by the Board of County Commissioners and is now part of the housing section. So we are looking for opportunities at every time that we counsel anybody who talks about wanting to do a plan amendment. One of the first things that I'll do, Andrea will do, Melissa will do, is we'll tell them about the different types of bonuses that are in the comprehensive plan that might get that person what they want without having to do the plan amendment. The reason we have that conversation with them is because sometimes it gets the community what they want without having the plan amendment. The community may want affordable housing. They may want a certain design standard. They may want other kinds of amenities within their community. And that's what a lot of these bonuses are actually trying to do in the comprehensive plan, is to move the needle in that way for the community on affordable issues and some of the other things. Melissa, Amy, anything to add?
Jay, do you have the a date of when that affordable housing bonus was just adopted?
I can certainly get it for you, but I believe it was December of 2022 it became effective.
Yep, I was just looking that up myself, and you are so right, Jay. December 16th. Nice memory.
Jay, if there's anyone who has more questions about that or wants to dive in deeper, is there any way they can go on our website, or can they contact you for more information?
Yeah, so obviously you go to the housing section itself and you can read through the policy that's there. You can contact our staff and we would be happy to talk to you about it. And we can also get you in contact with the Affordable Housing Department of Hillsborough County if you would like to dig a little deeper into some of those processes that they do have here in the county.
Thank you so much, Jay. Excellent information. And thank you so much, Nathan, for your questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you all for the thorough answers.
Tatiana, thank you so much for your patience.
It's totally fine. I just wanted to I believe in a lot of transparency when I go to community meetings and being honest about how I feel about what's happening. And honestly, I'm pretty sad and disappointed in this meeting, mostly because like at the beginning it was mentioned, we have a current crisis of thousands of people are moving here in the next 20 years. And that's already happening like today. And it's already happening that a lot of people living in the city are being priced out of the city or moving out to county. So it's coming in from like both directions. And even in the conversations of the affordable housing bonuses, even in the conversations of TOD, there's kind of this step of like, oh, we need to do this, but this other thing isn't our job. And it really saddens me, especially around zoning, because like, I know that the patterns of zoning that built our community were inherently racist and inherently created to exclude other people. And so if we don't look at zoning and we don't actually directly look at, hey, maybe if the county is like 75% single family zoning, I'm just throwing out a number. It's probably higher than that, honestly. And we look at like, that is going to inherently exclude people on affordability and on race divides. And so when we look back at what's happening with zoning and all the issues that's happening, is that we need to address that. Like we have a massive number of people coming in, a massive number of people being pushed out, and these little bubbles of tiny boosts aren't going to fundamentally address the fact that like, it's just going to end up pushing us out. It's going to end up, it doesn't like, we're not getting to the numbers that we're actually going to hit and getting to like goals of like, what if there was a goal to have much, because like, if we do small incremental changes in a lot of smaller areas, like I live in the Fowler area, there are so many parts of Xerica that can be developed, but a lot of it is parking. And we barely even touched on like, hey, what about the massive amounts of parking that are in the Fowler area that are being not used, not touched, not acknowledged, that could be massively redeveloped into affordable housing, because a lot of the area in Fowler is not affordable housing. As someone that's being pushed even further out into county currently. And so I really just want to push back on the conversations we've had about like not touching on zoning, because if we don't touch on zoning, we're never going to solve the problem. It's going to end up that like places like Davis Island will almost exclusively be white and wealthy, while Fowler Avenue continues to lose its diversity and people spread out further because they can't afford to live there, because all that's being built is what's left and what's in the standard of zoning, which is single family housing. And so sorry for that kind of longer complaint. It just, as someone that's lived in both a smaller and larger city, the level of like community feedback and even representation on renters and the people that are already homeless that are looking to get in housing is really disappointing, because I've seen both do better. And so this isn't really an attack on you all as planners. It's more an attack on like, what can we do better in the future that actually addresses the needs of the community and addresses how do we hit 30,000? Because when 30,000 people move here and all bring their cars, we're going to end up expanding the roads and making it worse. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Tatiana. I completely understand where you're coming from. I understand the history that you were discussing. And I want to make sure that I understand all the different elements that you were saying, because they're so important. So you'd like to see us have more integration with the zoning elements so that we can make sure that historic racism and anything like that does not continue as we continue to plan for the future. And you'd like to see us think through elements like parking, economic development, and affordable housing. Did I hear you right?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tatiana. And I really appreciate that feedback. We'll definitely be taking that again so that we can continue to improve our processes and our future land use update. And I really hope that you continue to stay involved, because that passion and your voice is so important in this process. So, and I am not just trying to blow smoke. I am really, truly passionate about your passion. So thank you very much for being open with us today and being transparent.
Hey, Amy, this is Rag. Can I ask the same question on the same note?
Let me ask, because we do have 3 other people who have had their hand raised for quite some time.
Okay.
To them, and then I promise I'll get to you, Rag.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, Austin, I believe you were next. Austin, are you with us?
Yeah, sorry, give me 1 second. Okay.
No worries.
I was having troubles on my phone. Okay, so I just wanted to be on the record that we need, for these new developments, we need to really look at the ecosystem and environments. Like I really want to emphasize that we shouldn't be clearing out any more protected or not. I mean, I guess it's not protected, but just like old natural habitats. Like earlier, someone was mentioning that there's a lake that they're trying to fill in to build new apartments on. And I just think that's the wrong way to go about developing, especially when it comes to affordable housing. A lot of these new condos and things aren't really that affordable to people. So I think that we should be really careful that we're not just capitulating to the developers and the incentives that they'll get and the kickbacks and the money and all of that. And I think we should really make sure that it, for one, is affordable housing, and it's not tearing out the existing environment that's been here and that this area is so nice for. Part of the reason why I moved to the Brandon area is because there's so many trees and wildlife and water areas, waterways, etc. So I just want to be on the record for that. And I do think there's another thing that I thought of, and I said it earlier, but I was cut off a little bit. The estimate for the 350 or however many people that are planning or projected to be moving here in the next 20 years, that number may be accurate, but I also know that I'm a Floridian my whole life, and I know how people, one bad summer or one bad hurricane, people are going to leave in droves. So I just want to be sure that we're prioritizing like infrastructure and not rushing to just build as much as we can for a projected number that's not set in stone. And like someone else was saying, kicking people out and the rent is going up, and then people have nowhere to live. And then right now I'm doing rounds with the soup kitchen. We go out and we feed the homeless, and we hear their stories, and there's a lot of people and they just can't even get into an apartment that's affordable housing because it's cost like $3,000 just right off the bat to get in. So I think that there should be prioritizing the infrastructure and the people that are already here and helping them find solutions that are practical. And then people who are going to move here, there's new developments and everything going up, so they'll find places. But I think we should also prioritize the roads systems, the lights, the traffic, the homeless population, the wildlife. I think those are all very good things to look at instead of just incentivizing developers to come down here and just develop on any land that's for sale. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Austin. And Melissa, feel free to add, but I did just want to say, I think the intent of a lot of our incentives, our density and intensity bonuses, are not to necessarily say, hey, everybody come here. It's more to say, we understand the trends are happening. We understand people are developing. We understand that this has happened. How can we guide this in the right ways so that we can make room for more affordable housing, helping our homeless shelters, making sure that we're sustainable throughout all of our projects, maximizing our existing infrastructure, which we know is very important, especially based on our survey that everyone took and the feedback that we received with that. So thank you so much, Austin. That absolutely, I completely understand and completely agree with you. We have to be able to maximize that existing infrastructure, prioritize sustainability, and prioritize our affordable housing. Melissa, did you want to add anything?
No, I mean, I think you're right on target with those answers, Amy. I would just add that, we as planners, we are stewards of the comprehensive plan, and we make recommendations and we make findings on whether something's consistent or not with the comprehensive plan. But ultimately, the decision is made by the Board of County Commissioners. So staff could say something, all day long, and it might not be the thing that actually gets decided. So I think as part of this conversation, people just need to keep in mind that this is just one prong in the solutions, like having good policies in place and doing this kind of outreach and research and hearing from you all and having such great ideas. But really it's the elected officials who make the final decisions. So it's also really good to reach out to them, to know what their platforms are and to sort of monitor what decisions that they're making, because that's really important part of the process as well.
Thank you, Melissa. And thank you, Austin. I appreciate your feedback. Humeria.
Hi. I'm just going to chime in a little bit on some of the things that Nathan and Tatiana were saying. And something that struck me on one of the introductory slides was the statement, encourage growth in areas where communities desire it. And there was another place where it said something about growth in areas where community wants to see it. And my big concern is, how are we determining who is the community? What is the community? Because this language kind of makes me think it's the people who are already there. And a lot of times the people who are already there, they don't want change where they are. Put the change somewhere else, but not in my backyard. And it tends to be, the community tends to be the haves, and the voices of the have-nots tends to be left out of the conversation. So this is more of what some of the other people have said, but that is a big concern to me, is that how is the voice of the community being determined? Because the problem is there's people who need to be in communities and are not. So if you're going by the communities that already exist, the people who need somewhere to go are going to be excluded.
That's an excellent point, Humaria. And I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. But what I'll tell you is that I think that the idea behind those two specific comments that you mentioned within our presentation is that, and specifically within our centers and connections, we have community plans. And those community plans, like the Valrico plan that we're working on now, they have their own public outreach, they have their own planning process that they go through, so that we can really hear from that specific community and those people within that community. And so each of these community plans, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, there are 22 right now within our comprehensive plan currently that we are constantly updating, constantly refreshing, constantly, trying to go back and make sure that it's as up to date as possible for the current residents. And those community plans, I think, are where we have seen places desire this, places want the density. We also know that there are places that do not, that want to stay, want to preserve the lands that they have. So I think that that's kind of the idea behind some of the where communities desire it comment comes into play. But absolutely, I completely agree that we have to make sure that we hear all of our voices and we take into consideration everyone who is in that community and who is not. Melissa, did you want to add anything?
No, Amy, your answers are so beautiful. It's hard to top.
Excellent. Humara, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess just back to the concern that so many of the people who are looking for housing, despite, I know you do lots of trying to outreach and let people know that these meetings are going on, but a lot of times they're so busy just trying to make enough money to pay the bills, to save for housing, or to pay for the rent that just went up $500 a month, that I don't think they're finding out about these meetings. So if you can possibly, try to get more creative and trying to reach out to these particular people, so you really are getting more diversity of input, would be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely.
So, just to ask a follow-up question on that, do you have any ideas on how we could reach out more, or where we could reach out to meet different types of people? Because I will let you know, we are very interested in hearing other ways that people have, to reach out, how we can get more people involved. So if you have any, there's our numbers, our emails, or if you want to, if you want to throw something in the chat, we're all ears.
Okay. Yeah. And I totally get that it is hard. There's no single media stream that hits everybody. Right. There's so much, so many things. It's difficult. But if I think of anything, I will share that.
Please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think it would be not an issue at all. It might be hard for Zoom, but I mean, if we had 500 people show up for these it might be difficult for us to manage, but I think we would really welcome that type of participation. So the more the merrier. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. And if you know of some newsletters that you have access to or anything like that that we can get in to advertise, feel free to contact us at any time. We do genuinely want to get the word out there. We want to hear everyone's voices. So I truly appreciate that feedback. I think, Tim, were you next? Tim, are you there?
Oh, I have to unmute myself on the thing, right?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just saying I stayed on, and I know we've gone over time, but I wanted to tell you guys, this is my first, Zoom meeting with the Planning Commission, and I really think this is great. You guys are doing a fantastic job. I can't even imagine this 15, 20, 30 years ago, right? I mean, we didn't have access to this. And so I commend you guys, and I do feel the the authenticity, and your guys are trying to do what's best for the county as a whole. You've got people on this call from all over the place, so I don't envy your position at all, but I understand what you're trying to do. And I just wanted to say this was really neat. It was interactive. I like the breakout sessions, and I just want to give you that feedback. And thank you again for staying so late after hours. Do appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Tim. What I can tell you is that every single member of Plan Hillsborough and myself, we love what we do. We believe in what we do. We believe in making change. And we know that it's only through these types of discussions that we'll be able to make change that accurately reflects our communities. And that's what we're so passionate about. So I'm glad that this was a positive experience for you. And I hope you'll continue to get involved. We have a lot more public outreach ahead of us.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you, guys.
Clara.
Yes, I hope I can keep this brief. Can you hear me okay?
I sure can.
Okay. I have a couple things I'd like to say, but one of them is the most important one is that since we've not had an opportunity to really stand up for the trees, I want to stand and be a tree hugger for a second.
All right.
The concept of development can be twofold. It can be gentle to the environment, or it can be horrific to the environment. And we're seeing more and more of horrific stories of how developers are just ignoring the rules and regulations and the potential fines for tearing out beautiful oaks and gorgeous trees that should never have been removed. My point to this is the relationship that your department has with the other departments. I would like to see it be stronger and more cohesive, more ingrained. When we talk about zoning, that's a different cat. That's a different character, not you. And so you don't have any involvement with it. Why not? And so let's go into environmental issues for a second. Why are builders able to say, I don't care, go ahead and fine me for cutting down these trees, because the amount that I have to pay is minuscule in terms of the profits that I'll gain. And I say that with wholeheartedness, that we really need to have a more cohesive approach to development in Hillsborough County, from the zoning aspect, from the environmental, from the natural resources, from the EPC to your department. All of these need to be more in tandem than they currently are, because what we hear often is, oh, I'm sorry, that's not my department. Well, I realize it's not your department, but it's all of Hillsborough County's concern. And I would like to see the day that we have a better integration of communication. And I know you guys talk to each other. I'm not implying that that's a stone wall and you can't cross it. But I'd like to see the opportunity one day that we are able to bring a cohesive approach with zoning and environmental and water and land use and planning and all of these things into a more positive structure. Because right now these isolated elevators aren't able to get the job done as effectively. So that's my concern, is that we find a path to bring in a more cohesive approach to all of the elements that are involved in growth and development.
Thank you, Clara. I appreciate that comment. I know that we do try to integrate as much as possible. In fact, Plan Hillsborough has, the Plan Hillsborough is actually two entities, the Planning Commission and the Transportation Planning Organization, to try to work towards that integration. So I appreciate that so much. And I completely agree. We are working towards that cohesive growth management strategy. I will continue to echo what someone said previously of we'd love your feedback to also talk with your commissioners, talk with your politicians, let them know how you feel about these things so that they can continue to approve things in the right direction so that we can have that more cohesive approach.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Clara, and great to see you. All right, with that, we are a little over time. Melissa or Andrea, did you have any other comments you wanted to provide?
No, I just wanted to thank everyone for being here and providing such thoughtful comments. We had a really great discussion in all the breakout groups. We had some really great questions and comments, and we just really appreciate everyone's time tonight. Thank you.
Melissa, do you mind taking my
Rob,
one small question?
I apologize. You didn't have. I apologize. Go ahead, Rob.
See, I see you are changing land use plan and map and future plan, whatever it is. I'm sorry for my layman's understanding. But I was also asked, like, look at the zoning, right? So when I go for rezoning, obviously they look at future land use map. Because you are the starting point, you are the Bible for zoning. Right. So my question here is, are you changing in this update? Are you changing any AR5 section to AS or AS1? My comprehensive question is, I know you are saying 3,000 people are coming in next, whatever the 5-10 years, right? How, with this change, are you addressing this population growth to accommodate in a sustainable way? Is any change happening, for example, from AR5 to AS1 or ASC1 is happening in any of the Hillsborough County at this time?
So the first thing that you mentioned, AR 1 and 5, that is a future land use category. That's 1 unit per 5 acres. And the two, I think you said ASC1 and AS1, those are zoning districts. So what I think you're asking me though is the future land use map changing right now? Are we proposing to make changes to the map with this update? And my answer to that is not yet. That will be another phase of this. Once we have the policy language in place, the plan is to then look at the future land use map and to say, now that we have these policies in this direction, endorsed by the board and approved by the board, then what do we need to change on the map in order to accommodate the growth? So that is a next step, but it's just not happening quite yet.
When is that? I mean, because the reason I'm excited is, to me, it's filled up. Hillsborough County is filled up. All is left over is on CR 39. There is some land left and some land left between Tonasotata and I-4 North between Plant City and Tonasotata and around Stony Lake area. All these areas are AR5, something like that.
Unfortunately, I don't have a schedule for you right now. It really depends on how this process goes and how long this takes. And as you've seen tonight, this is quite an undertaking. There's a lot of topic areas to cover with the future land use section. And that is why we've actually we've built this process for the comprehensive plan update for the future land use to go last, because it does cover so many topics, and it really is sort of our batting cleanup element. So we updated, as Amy mentioned in the first part of the outreach meeting tonight, that we've updated, the rec and open space element and the environmental section and the coastal management, the housing section, mobility, all of those have been updated. So the future land use it has 700 policies today, and we're trying to reorganize them, streamline them, modify some of them to make them better, like you've seen tonight. So again, it's quite an undertaking and it takes some time, and we're probably not even halfway through the outreach yet. So unfortunately, I don't have a time for you, but I will tell you it is coming.
Okay, thanks, Melissa. Maybe end of
Sure.
year, do you think end of this year we might change, those changes might come?
Oh, definitely not by the end of the year. No, sir. Sorry.
Oh.
It takes a lot longer than that.
Okay, so we're not, okay, anyway, I'll
I
get
mean,
back.
this won't even be in the approval process by the end of the year, because we're still going to be doing research through the fall. So this is really like I was saying, this is a pretty large, detailed process that takes a long time. And then once this is solidified and approved, then we would move on to looking at the map.
Thank you, sure, appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you.
Well, great. Thank you so much, everyone. We appreciate you being here, truly. If you have additional questions, please feel free to contact us at any time. You can see our contact information on the screen. Also, please follow us on social media for more updates on this and other projects. Thank you again for joining, and we'll see you next time.